Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Today is May 18th, 2023. It is currently 3:04, and I would like to call this meeting of the Audit Committee to order. So first on our agenda is approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes? Does anybody want to offer any amendments or corrections?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we have approval of the minutes. And next we have RSM's FY22 expenses audit. And we do have Ms. Kalaman here with us today. And I believe Mr. King is also with RSM.
Correct. Thank you again, and good afternoon, everyone. We're very happy to be with you today and present two of our main topics of order. The first one is to close out our fiscal 2022 review of the expenses of the main directors of MES. This is a report that was issued back in April. Just want to ensure that everyone has had a chance to take a look into the report. And again, these are agreed upon procedures as it relates to ensuring that the expenses are being adhered to by the policies, by the state of Maryland policies. We've done so and basically only noted two exceptions. They weren't anything egregious that showed that there was any sort of systemic matters. One was really the total for $617. We've noted it in the report overall that two of those 10 transactions that were tested were not basically submitted within 30 calendar days as mandated by your policy. We just noted what those transactions were for and noted it in the report as the only exception. So at this time, I want to ensure that you guys have had an opportunity to review that. And if you have any specific questions at hand that we can tackle today.
Any comments, questions?
I just have a comment that I again thank RSM, Valerie, and Mr. King. They do thorough review of expenses according to this MES Reform Act, which requires that there are no unauthorized spending or any deviation from the policy. So what they have found is that there's not any unauthorized spending or deviation from the policy. It's just because of unavoidable circumstances. A couple of them were submitted late. One, the employee wasn't even aware of it, that expense was charged to the personal card. And the other one, was because of the security setting that cannot be submitted within 30 days. But it was submitted immediately within a week. So just want to let you know that both of them were unavoidable circumstances and it was late. However, they were all valid authorized business expenses.
Perfect. Thank you. And now we'll go on and move to the fiscal 2023 presentation as it relates to our planning procedures for the audit. Philip will share that. Perfect. So hopefully everyone was able to receive this as well. We'll jump straight to the executive summary. Again, we are happy to be here and to assist in the audit procedures. So just to kind of give you a few heads up as it relates to what's going to transpire. So we will be completing the fiscal 2023 financial statement audit and uniform grant guidance audit. Our preliminary audit work is scheduled to take place in July, so really shortly after you close your June 30th, 2023 year. And those procedures will include updating our understandings of the entity, walkthroughs of the transaction cycles, and analytical review procedures. We've scheduled our final field work for the week of August 7th, and there's some additional timing that we'll go through in the back of the presentation as well. So key areas of focus during this period's audit includes any areas that we deem to be significant risk, which we'll outline on page 11 of the slides. And we plan to work with various subject matters as we've done in the past. So those matters, or experts, I should say, are part of the valuation specialists in testing the pension and the other post-employment benefit liabilities. We utilize those expertise in those areas of the audit to assist us with evaluation of those liability balances. We don't anticipate any significant changes or a need for an audit emphasis relating to prior period or anything of that nature. So we just want to say, based on conversations we've had with management, we've had some one-on-ones with them earlier of the month to see what transpired during the service during this period of audit. And there's nothing that is kind of showing that there will be a need for any sort of emphasis of matter paragraphs. So the next slide. We wanted to showcase the team in full. So right here, again, I am the audit partner as it relates to this particular engagement. We have a second partner review. His name is Brett Friedman. So essentially at the end of the audit, we utilize someone that is independent from the team that can come in and take a look at what we've done to ensure that the quality control is in there. Brett sits in Florida just to kind of showcase how independent he is from the team. Philip King is our audit senior manager, and he is being supported by Rochelle and Sophia. These are associates and supervisors that were part of the engagement in prior years, so there is continuity that is transpiring. Additionally, as I indicated, we do utilize specialists as it relates to actual evaluation reviews, and we've included the individuals' names noted there as they will be assisting and being part of the engagement team. Next area. One of the things that we like to always say is effective strategy for us is to ensure that we have that open lines of communication with you. You are the audit committee of the organization and essentially charged with governance as it relates to this subject matter. So what we try to do is timely communicate with you as it relates to any matters that are relevant to the audit, such as right now as we're doing so. And if there's anything that transpires that you need any sort of communication on our end or anything that pops up during this process that you'd like to connect with us, we want to always let you know that line of communication is open. We want to know your thoughts as it relates to any sort of fraud that is involved or any sort of significant matters that is happening in the organization that is deemed to be needed to be communicated to the auditors. Again, we are here for that. Next slide. We also want to indicate that we do follow both AICPA and what is called Government Accountability Office GAO independence rules. So essentially everyone in the team that I noted earlier is independent from the organization. We've maintained our system of quality control over that requirement. We ensure that everyone doesn't have any sort of activity related to the service so that independence is maintained. There's a few things that we always want to ensure that independence is maintained on, and we keep that in the forefront. You'll see this language in the arrangement letter as well, but we wanted to ensure that you understand that we are independent. And then these are the two reporting guidance that we follow, AICPA and GAO. Then I'm going to pass it over to Philip to kind of go over our audit policy strategy.
Hey, yes, good afternoon. Good to talk with you today. So again, getting a little more deeper into the audit process, just making sure that the board understands what we mean when we say audit. So we don't look at every single thing, every single transaction. Instead, what we do is we take an approach where we first understand the processes of the entity and the balances, and we define materiality. We then proceed to move on to sort of risk evaluate the financial statements so that we can be giving more attention to the areas that are more risky and more material. And that's where we drive more of our testing and in our pursuit of just making sure that the financial statements are correct. As part of that process, we do look at the internal control environment that process transactions and drive the financial reporting to make sure that and we would communicate any deficiencies if we identify any during our understanding of that, just so that you understand. We look at the financial statements, but we're also looking at the processes that create those financial statements as well. And that's the people processes, and that's the information technology process as well. I did mention that materiality is a big driver in the selection of our testing and how we test transactions and balances in the financial statements. And so part of that is purely based on dollar. Part of that is based on the nature of the transactions. And of course, in that determination, we bring in our professional judgment, our experience as to how we would evaluate things on a qualitative basis. So I mentioned earlier that we look at both the financial reporting and the internal control. So I just want to highlight at the end of the audit, we will be issuing a few of our opinions. Of course, we will issue our opinion over the financial statements and whether or not those financial statements are in compliance with the accounting standards. But we also issue related to the single audit and related to the government, the government auditing standards. We also issue our reports on internal control over the entity's compliance with material laws and in compliance with the major programs. So you'll see those in the back of our reports. And in those, if we had material findings, we would disclose that so that you were aware of those findings. And then we also put in this slide just so that the board is aware of non-audit services, so services that are related to the audit but are actually outside of that audit report. One is what we just talked about a minute ago, is our agreed upon procedures related to the MES expense policies. The other non-audit service report, which we had delivered earlier, and we will do again for fiscal year 2023, is we issue a report that reviews the indirect cost rate calculation and the fringe rate calculation. So we will report again to the committee on those calculations and the procedures we performed around those. And so as part of transparency, we have identified what we call the most significant risk areas. So these are the areas that, again, going back to our judgment and I'm bringing our qualitative assessments based on materiality and just the nature of these transactions or balances. These are the areas that receive the highest level of attention from the audit team. And so the most rigorous procedures or rigorous evaluation of the underlying estimates. And so the areas we've identified are consistent with prior year, but we'll go ahead and just highlight these again for you, which are the management's. We look at the controls overriding the financial reporting process, and primarily that's around how the financial statements are written and how journal entries are posted. And we test those processes and we test transactions in connection with that. We also, revenue recognition is always going to be one of our primary areas. And so we look at the controls, again, is an area we target for that and how the controls are operating, how they're designed. And then we also test certain transactions, sample transactions for testing, just to make sure that we found the revenue was appropriate. And then due to the estimation involved around the pension and the other post-employment benefits liabilities, and also the landfill closure and post-closure liabilities, we have identified those areas, and in those areas we're spending more time around the estimates used and the data involved in those calculations, more so than testing specific transactions. Although when it does come to the pension and the landfill, we do test, and for the OPEB, we test census data, we do test transactions. But for us, the biggest area is going to be the estimation. So we have gone through the timing of the audit already earlier, so I won't re-highlight that.
No, can you go back, please? I want to see it.
Okay. All right. Well, we can go through this in detail.
Thank you.
So yeah, we're planning to start mid-July, where we come in, and the preliminary audit work that's primarily where we're understanding the control processes, seeing what's changed, and then really starting to make those kind of fine-tune those assessments and starting to make selections. In August, that's where. Yes.
Mr. King, so we're in a post-COVID world, I think we can say now. Are you going to do more in person? This will be the first year where RSM might actually be here more to do the deep dive at the beginning of the audit. Or are you still doing more of it virtually? You're just going to take the data?
So
No,
we've
we
been,
can do hybrid.
Yeah.
We can do,
Yeah.
that's what we've been sort of doing with our clients. So if we're allowed
Doing
to,
hybrid?
yeah, hang out for 2 to 3 days at your location, we're more than happy to come and then, work on some other days in our offices and so forth.
Excellent. Good to hear. I just wanted to ask.
Yes.
okay. Yeah, and we'll work with him and put together some kind of schedule there.
And Ms. Condra will be involved. We have an internal auditor now that can also assist finance with processes, and I want her to be in tune.
She needs to be involved. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, we'll make sure we connect with all those people. Yeah, so most of our sort of what you would view as the audit work takes place in that August timeframe. And then in September, that's where we're sort of finalizing our conclusions, and then working with management to review the financial statements and provide our feedback there. And then at that point, we're working in tandem in October to really get all of our technical reviews in the file and sign off on the reports and issue that to management, and then back, of course, to the board. Following the issue of the audit, once that's complete, then we can get into our report on the indirect cost rates I talked about earlier. And then following that, the last thing we'll do is the testing of the expense policies, agreed upon procedures.
Excellent.
Okay, and just for the record, we really need to meet that October deadline.
Yes. We've had a conversation with management that basically indicated, and we've suggested that any matters or numbers that require a third party to be a part of, such as your OPEB or your pension or your landfill, start working with those individuals now to get those numbers.
Okay. Yeah, excellent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, and then I think there's a big hump to get over last year with the leases, and the management's been through that experience already. So we do anticipate
the Gatsby changes the leases. The Gatsby changes. Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're so we expect that piece to go smoother and quicker this year too.
Are there any other new Gatsby rules?
There is. There is another appendix that we're gonna go over. So I will tell you one more after this one. I'll dive into some of the changes of Gatsby.
Constantly changing.
Yeah.
Always. Yes.
Yeah. So we do highlight whenever we anticipate including any additional paragraphs to the opinion. And so we do include a paragraph on what we call supplemental information. So it's the additional information around the financial statements that go into the report, like the MD&A discussion. And so this is for you guys. This is actually really more of a standard report opinion in our paragraph, because we do repeat this paragraph every year, but we do want to highlight that's going to be in there.
So this is the Gatsby. So the main one that I want to highlight is the second one. So it's statement 96, subscription-based information technology arrangements. So essentially, this is leases for any sort of subscription-based agreements you have in the organization. The concept there is you'd have to do a thorough review to ensure that all of your subscription base are going to be noted as a right to use intangible asset with a corresponding liability that is recorded based on the present value. So it's the same concept of the leases being added to your balance sheet. This one is just highlighting only subscription-based intangibles. So management will need to go ahead and do an evaluation of all their contracts that might be any sort of subscription-based information technology contract, and put that number on both the asset side and the liability side. So again, it's the same concept as leases. We'd like to understand your procedures to identify those contracts, what you've done to ensure the completeness procedures, that you're not missing any contracts that should be noted, And that will assist us in getting through this adoption quickly.
Statement 94 doesn't apply to us for public-public relationships?
The public-private and public-public partnerships? No, not
Yeah.
necessarily. It would be for those that, I mean, we can dive into it. If you feel like there is a little bit of there as it relates to that, I'm more than happy to dive into that, and I'll send you some guidance.
Okay,
And
I
the
just
99
wonder, as we serve county and state governments, I just wonder, county and state government agencies, I wonder if, I don't know anything about it. I just saw the title
Yeah,
and I read
of course.
the sentence. So I was just asking,
No,
based on
and
all those relationships, if it's a new change in how we have to present those arrangements.
absolutely. So for that, so the way we would see that is technically you're considered the public side as well, since you're a quasi, and it looks like you're serving other governmentals. So right, is that correct to say in that regard, since you're working with the counties and the states?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So this is more in line when you get into the private industry side of things, right? Things that are not necessarily on the governmental side. But again, I want to ensure that we do incorporate and think of 94 correctly. So I can send some guidance over to ensure that we take that consideration.
We do have a few private clients as well, where
Okay.
we're public serving private.
Yep.
WR Graceland, Monofill in Baltimore is
Okay.
one of them. So I just, and the Pocket,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Rocky Gap, yes, Rocky Gap as well. So we have some public, private, where we're serving private entities.
Yeah.
I would like to learn about it, so please, if you can send whatever documents explain it, just to make sure that we cover ourselves. Sometimes when we've gone to the Board of Public Works, the prior comptroller would ask us questions about some of our agreements with private entities, and we have to work through that. So if there's any changes, we just need to know what people are asking for public entities that serve the private. Just to know. Thank you, though.
Absolutely. We'll get that to you. And then that's really it. So the main one is 96. We're going to look into 94 to see if there's any sort of applicability there. And then we'll get through those two. And then I think next slide, I think we're done. Philip,
But we have
let me.
that we give to EPA.
Will the partner show up on one of those days, or is she going to be too busy in her main office in DC to come up to us?
No.
In Millersville.
I definitely like to be at the client site. So if the client is accepting me, I will be there.
Look forward to seeing you again, Mrs. Conlon.
Absolutely. Any
Well,
questions?
Thank you to both of you. Are there any questions? Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. So we'll hop off. Thank you again.
Thank
See
you.
you soon.
Unless you want to listen to the internal auditor, to make sure she's doing her job, we her oversight too.
Thank you, guys. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
You gotta go be billable someplace else, I'm sure.
So is Miss Condra in
She's right
person?
here.
Oh, wonderful. Excellent. Hi.
I know we look small on your screen, I'm sure.
Very small. Okay, and now we're going to hear from our internal auditor. So thank you.
Maybe not even virtually. It's,
All right. Sure.
Rates didn't change.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Miss Heller. How are you? Haven't seen you in a while.
The same. And to be fair, you guys are very, very small on my screen, so it's hard to see who's sitting around the table.
It's good. I'll take it.
Forgive me.
So our discussion points today is basically we're going to be going over the FY23 audits, the FY24 audit plan, internal audit awareness month, that is May, and we're going to go over the billable project activities, and then also talk about the FY25-26 risk assessment. Most of two of these items, I don't have a slide for. I'm just gonna speak to it. So if that's okay. Yeah, go scroll it. You know what, maybe you handle it. Yeah, you handle it. All right, the first thing I want to talk about, audit, I want to talk about is the review of contractors, MBE and SBR waiver process. That audit report was issued April the 3rd, 2023. The scope was to review the process to waive the contractors MBE participation and the SBR designated bids. We looked at the periods from July 1st to 2020 to June 30th, 2022. And that's looking at from a data perspective. Yeah. The audit results for that is we gave it a rating of ineffective low materiality because of two key management issues. And they are lack of SOD controls and undocumented processes. I do, if you guys have any questions on that before I move on.
Just how, Madam Chair, just so how you're gonna handle it, are they gonna bring something back to you? Are they gonna bring something back to the board?
So right now, this is just a really high profile because I didn't want to get into the nitty gritty of things. But I can speak to the two key management issues. So basically, the lack of SODs, we saw that there were missing SOD controls within the program's review and approval processes, where the program manager is the only subject matter expert overseeing the management of the programs from all aspects. Although GUSPA was the reference ultimate reviewer and approval of MBE and SBR waivers, we identified and verified with GUSPA representatives that they have very little insight into those submittals through their system, and waiver approval is solely on each state agency's program managers, AKA liaison. Also, a level of approval authorization was not established for MBE and SBR waivers. So internal audit, we were recommended that procurement designate or hires an MBE and SBR analysis to separate the program manager's role to create that segregation of duty, right? Where he's not the reviewer, then the approver, and there's something separated where someone else is doing the smaller jobs and he or someone else is reviewing it and they're subject matter experts just like he is. And that's the problem. So the management response is they're going to work on making a decision from upper management to hire an analysis, and where the analysis will submit either hire or designate.
There will be someone designated.
Yeah.
We're not hiring another person for them.
Yeah. The analyst will submit a waiver recommendation to MBE and SBR manager, and then the manager will forward the recommendation to the chief of procurement for approval. Also, procurement will create an approval level and document it into their procedural manner. So it's something that's standard. Everyone knows what's going on, and we create those segregation of duties and delegation of authorities, which the delegation of authority exists, but when it comes to someone else looking at it, questioning and having a knowledge of what the MBE and SBR is, right? What they are, we need someone else. And also when it comes to succession planning and so forth, we need someone else in that to fill in.
I just want to make sure we understand the process. You're our internal auditor.
Yes.
You have brought this to the audit committee, which is a subset of the board. All your findings should also be shared with the full board. And then with the remedy.
Yes.
And then the board should have the opportunity to say yay or nay on the remedy. And then there should be a feedback loop that says all the remedies have been implemented.
Yes.
And then case closed.
Yes.
That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, so we do have a follow-up process especially when there's an ineffective, with a rating like this, we do have a follow-up process. Again, we understand that, we have that the procurement group is part of operations for our project managers. So we understand that they're not gonna just drop everything, right? And just, but they still have to, like, make the donuts and continue. So they did provide a date, and I will after this meeting, I'll forward you the distributed audit report, and then so forth, share with the board afterwards.
Good.
Yeah. So the undocumented process is, we identified that several processes to manage the programs were undocumented, such as creating the MBE and SBR annual report and the SBR designation waiver. So they do have a process, but it's not in the procurement guideline. And where you can see it's reviewed by the executive director and the managing director of finance, right? Where there is no method of how the percentages were populated, and we need something documented. Not saying it's wrong or anything, but we need it documented. So if something happened, right, and someone else, they understand what the process is, how to calculate the percentage. So when someone comes in, we have reduced that error factor.
So you got, this is phase one, where you're actually establishing a process. Phase two is you'll go back and see that they're following established processes.
Yes.
Right now, we got to get a process in place.
Right. Yes.
So,
yes.
So you'll revisit this to see that they're following in subsequent years.
Yes.
And that they're following the process that we all set up.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
If you so to continue with the program manager being the only subject matter expert, as we come back to this for the programs, non-documentation of those processes will create roadblocks in procurement's bidding and awarding phases. We recommend that the program manager create and document standard processes for SBR waiver activities and designing of the program's annual report. Their response was they will concur with the recommendation, and the MBE manager will train the analyst after onboarding and will update the current procurement procedures with the SBR waiver process as prescribed. Also, workday data will be reviewed by the finance department to verify the information. So that was the response for those two, for those key management issues. Next. Any questions? All right. So the next audits that we have, segregation of duties review, which was requested by the audit committee and the board. We're in a phase in the audit testing phase. So we're looking to complete June 1st, draft audit report by June 19th, and distribute the final report June 30th. Again, I'm going to put a disclaimer. Anything can come up.
And it does.
And it does. So these dates are my wish list. So, and then we're also getting other projects, which I'm going to talk about. But the next audit that's coming up would be the review of Eastern Shore Forest Products Time and Material Contract, and that will be our next planned audit. Next. So we're looking now at the planned audits for FY24. I know we went over this, but it's good. I know that the audit plan is not something you guys have. Like, I wonder what Winsome is doing for FY24. So I would like to revisit what we have on the plan. Review, the first one we have is review of procurement shortlist selection process. The next one is review the management of duplicate invoices within Workday, making sure that we have controls in place. We're going to run some analysis within Workday to perform that test. We're also going to look at review of training application policies and procedures. And also, last but not least, review of strategic compensation benefit management. So this is based off the last risk assessment that was performed, where it covered the FY23 and FY24 audit plan based on the risk assessment and the top key risk indicators. So that's what we have. Again, when we're ready to do an audit, we do reach out to management to ensure that this is something that still needs to be done in terms of if there's any new process coming in place, any systems that make this still okay to be performed. So the next thing, I'm just going to speak to this. So the next thing on there is talking about this May is MES Internal Audit Awareness Month. So listen, I have to be. So MES Audit Team, we're a team now. We're gonna
Team of two.
Team of two, and I love it. We're gonna actually attend the Baltimore IAA event today to celebrate their 75th anniversary. I'm also on the leadership team at on the Baltimore IAA as an assistant program manager for training. And the second thing that we're looking to do for the month of May is present a training to managing directors and chiefs, division chiefs, and talk about the 3 lines of defense in risk management and what it means to their group and the organization. So that's in the work to set that up and have that by the end of this month to close out the month.
Make everybody aware.
Yes, making everyone aware.
Gotta love your auditors. Love your internal auditors.
The next thing I want to talk about is the billable project activities, and Dr. Glass had presented at the last board meeting about the business groups coming to audit for help for our client needs, where we can provide to them. So currently we're working with MDEM COVID Closeout project for the test group. And I just wanted to present to you the hours that we already worked and the billable revenue coming in because of audit participation on this project. So this data covers between November 22nd, 2022 to April 2023, from we started to where we at right now. And this is how much we have contributed, where Alex's, which is the audit trainee, his time is 50% billable. And I would say my time is 5 to 10% billable on this project. They're looking to extend, the project was amended to extend for 12 more months and increase my audit hours more to, I think, like increase it by 10 hours a week. So, and we are looking for potential more billable activities from wherever it comes from the different groups where we're fit.
This is the chiming for the audit committee. We always are doing this only for client partners where we are serving our environmental mission, and this is something that can help them deliver on their environmental or health, in this case, impacts and how the state responds to emergencies, anything in the environmental world. So right now it's MDEM. There's some interest from
The port.
the port.
Mhm,
There's
yes.
some interest from the port and how they deliver on their environmental requirements from an environmental audit perspective. And hopefully someday, Ms. Heller, that there will be county governments that in their delivery of federal awards or in how they deliver on IIJA and infrastructure funds and how that interacts with the environment, whether it's conveyance or making sure that flooding issues and how they're managed. This is a great way to ensure that for environmental projects, the delivery of the impact of that federal funding is monitored, which is a requirement of most of those grants in that federal funding. So I gave kudos at the other board meeting, but Ms. Condra is helping us help deliver for the environmental good, not just do an audit. So just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Build it. Build it organically, no pressure. Potential clients, just a service,
Yes, yeah, no worries. The next topic I want to talk about is the FY 25-26, the risk assessment coming up. We are going to start working on that in October, November months, where as before, we'll deliver this before before fiscal year 25, where, before it begins, and where you will review it, and then the board will approve on the audit plans for those next fiscal years.
No slide on that.
No slide, this is just a topic.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Questions?
No questions? Any comments, concerns, issues? Okay, thank you, Ms. Condra. Appreciate the briefing today.
Thank you. Welcome.
And now we are down to old and new business. We can take them both together. Is there any old or is there any new business that we should discuss at our audit meeting?
The Madam Chair, Dr. Glass raised the point that I was going to make, is that it's time to go back to school and appear in person. We just had our auditors at Medical Mutual. We welcomed them back. They were auditing from afar, and we thought that they ought to go up. And so that was the only point I was going to raise, is that at some point, and I'll tell you, with a lot of organizations, it's like pulling teeth, trying to get people to come back. And a lot of them are saying, well, how about hybrid? Well, with audits, we're the customer, and we really should express our preference, and they should accommodate us.
Didn't change their billable rate.
No.
We don't have cooties anymore.
So that was all I had, Madam Chairman.
No, I appreciate that. I agree. I think we learned a new way of business, but it can be incorporated into the previous way we did business. It's not a replacement for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I do believe we have finished the agenda, unless Dr. Glass, there's anything you'd like to add.
No, everything's going swimmingly, and
See you next week.
see you next week. I will be in Hershey, about to give a keynote, but I will be on and will deliver. I will be hybrid for the first time.
There you go.
But I worked all the way through COVID.
Yeah, there you go.
In person. As you did. Anyway.